Hello, I'm Jordan, and there is it's not exactly a tag, but there is a kind of video format going around BookTube right now, just really making the rounds. It was created by Michael K. Vaughan, and I'm sure most of you have seen someone's version of this by now. And that's the books that are not Penguin Classics, but that should be, which has just been a huge amount of fun to watch the various people give their give their picks. Steve Donahue, of course, made a couple videos. Jack over at the Rambling Raconteur just released his own today. And I've been kind of thinking about it ever since it first started moving around BookTube. And I've come up with my own list. I think I have about 10 choices. And I think anyone who likes Penguin Classics has perhaps given this some thought. I like them. First of all, of course, I like the choices they make, but I also like just the aesthetics of the books themselves. I think they look really nice, and the art that they choose and the art that they commission tends to be really good. I actually prefer the older line, like this is my Decameron. I just like the size of this. It's kind of closer to mass market paperback size, and I don't know, I just think it's got a nice, simple kind of look to it. Of course, this is the more famous. This is my Arabian Nights here. It's the more famous kind of Penguin Classic format and the more recent one, and it's very classy. I do prefer this, but in any case, I'm a big fan of the line, and I thought I'd give my choices here, and I was able to locate a nifty kind of create your own Penguin Classic cover for this, which was, of course, half the fun. So my first pick is The Common Reader by Virginia Woolf, both the first and the second Common Reader, and you could easily include them in a single volume. And these are just full of incredible essays about various writers, both contemporary to Virginia Woolf and also much earlier. And honestly, reading Virginia Woolf in any context is just intensely immersive and just a rewarding reading experience. I can't think of a better prose stylist ever that I know of than Virginia Woolf, and to hear her write about reading and books of all things is just it's a dream come true. So it could easily be done to put both of them in a single volume. It would not even be a particularly long Penguin Classic volume. So hopefully that will someday happen. I'm not even sure if any of Virginia Woolf's books are in a Penguin Classic edition. I might be wrong about that. Someone let me know, but that is a travesty if that's the case. Next, I have what I consider to be the greatest science fiction novel ever written, and that's The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. I have talked plenty about this book on my channel in the past. It is just a endlessly rewarding reading experience, and it's also just tremendously fun. It's an adventure story on top of everything else it is. It's certainly not just that, but that's what keeps the pages turning. And it's just a perfect specimen of science fiction, in my opinion. And science fiction is a little underrepresented by Penguin, I think. Next, I have the Gorman-Gass novels. There are 3 completed Gorman-Gass novels, and they could easily all fit into a single volume. I know because I have a volume of all 3 Gorman-Gass books in a single volume. I'm not sure who publishes that, but it's not Penguin. And they should really get on that. I think a couple people have brought up Lord of the Rings, which I agree with. I'm just trying not to repeat anyone. So I will choose a different mid-20th century fantasy trilogy. Next, I have the Selected Juvenilia of the Brontes. As far as I know, Penguin does not do that. I think there is a Penguin volume of the Selected Juvenilia of Charlotte, but I mean, if you could include the Juvenilia from all 4, of course you couldn't include all of it. That would take up many, many volumes. If you could include kind of the best of the best. I have not read any of it other than what is excerpted in Juliet Barker's book on the Brontes. But I think, at least in the case of Emily, she considered the Juvenilia her core passion as a writer, and certainly in all 4 cases, it's what sparked everything else that came later, and in many ways lays the foundation for the various places that these four siblings went as writers. So it's essential reading and understanding who they are, I think. But it's also, as I understand it, fascinating on its own. The excerpts of it that I've read. So it'd be great if they could collect kind of the best of the best in a single volume from them. And then on a related note, I think it's a travesty that nowhere in any line am I aware of a book of the works of Branwell Bronte. So it would be fantastic if there was a selected works of Branwell Bronte that Penguin Classics put out. There isn't much, but certainly if you combined the Juvenilia with what survives of his poetry, which is very good, you could probably fill a volume. And I do think that Branwell, unfortunately, is largely forgotten and overshadowed by his sisters. And certainly he was not as talented as some of them, but I would argue maybe more talented than one in particular. But his poetry, at least, I have read some of his poetry, and it is really, really good. So it's a shame that he has been forgotten, and I think bringing some of his work out in a line as distinguished as this would go a long way. Moving on, my next choice would be The Complete Stories of Borges. Penguin does not do The Complete Stories of Borges, which is ridiculous. I do think that there are, I think they do the Aleph and maybe a different standalone collection, but you can put all of his stories in a single volume, and Penguin should certainly do that. There's no reason not to. Personally, I like having if you have a writer whose collected works or collected stories or collected poems can be contained in a single volume, I really like having that, just because in that case you always have what you need in a single volume. I don't know, there's the purist in me finds that very appealing. So certainly maybe this feels like one that could potentially happen someday down the line. I don't know. We'll see. Next I have this, I think, is the most surprising omission in all of Penguin's classics. There is, as far as I know, there is no single volume collected Grimm's fairy tales in its entirety. So that should certainly be done at some point. I think that there's like selected stories from Grimm's, but there is no reason why you couldn't do the entirety in a single volume. It's just absolutely ridiculous. If you can do this, the Arabian Nights in 3 fat volumes, then why not Grimm's fairy stories? It's just absurd. And then, of course, I have to bring up John Crowley, and I'm going to bring up what I think is his greatest work, and that's Little Big. Hopefully someday this will happen. Certainly, at the very least, John Crowley needs to be in the Library of America series. If that doesn't happen, then there is no justice in the world. But hopefully after that, or even before, we can move on to Penguin Classics, where he belongs as well. Certainly Little Big belongs. I was thinking perhaps you could even do his Egypt cycle, which is 4 books, and you might be able to do that in a fat, like 1,500-page volume. I don't know if anyone would ever do that, but that'd be kind of cool too. And then I have the Complete Poems of Emily Dickinson, which Penguin does not do. Again, just absolutely absurd that this would not be a thing that Penguin would do. I don't know what the reasoning is. I think perhaps they may have selected poems, but she didn't write that much, or what she did write, she had such an economical style that most of her poems, you can fit several to a page. So this would not even be that fat of a volume. Like right up here, this is the Collected Poems of Emily Dickinson. This is that famous hardcover, and it's not even that big of a volume. So Penguin should really get on that. And finally, my final choice, oh no, I have 2 more choices. First of all, I have Table Talk by William Hazlitt, which was a book of essays that he wrote. Kind of, the impression I'm getting is that he was trying to mimic Montaigne. He failed. Hazlitt had a much more somewhat stilted style than Montaigne, whereas with Montaigne you feel like you're just talking to a man across the table, and also across many centuries. It's just he's that approachable. Hazlitt is not that, but much like Woolf, his prose is just so sumptuous and evocative and beautiful. I have not read all of Table Talk, partly because it's so difficult to find. I know that Penguin does, or in the past did, a kind of selected works of William Hazlitt, but why not give us Table Talk as it was originally composed and intended? That just seems, again, ridiculous. And then finally, I'm going to go with what is my personal favorite work of nonfiction ever, and that's Ben McCulloch's History of Christianity, the first 3,000 years. I have a El Greco painting there on the front, which I think looks quite good. And this is a massive 1,000-page history of Christianity, and it is riveting on every single page. It is a miracle of research, but also of just quality prose writing. And I think it's fair to say that it will last well into the future and be kind of the standard book on the subject. So certainly Penguin should get on that in the near future. I'm not counting on it though. So anyways, those are my choices. Let me know what you guys think. I tried not to repeat anything that anyone else had said, and I also tried not to include too many books that I've talked about a bunch on this channel, although of course I couldn't resist the temptation to talk about Le Guin and Crowley. Yeah, let me know what you guys think, and if there are any booktubers out there who haven't yet done this, I strongly encourage it, because it's a lot of fun, and I'm very curious to know what y'all would pick. So thank you for watching. Have a good day.